Hello, and welcome to a new year of film and media-associated deep dives and reviews that is known as the FilmSpark podcast. I am your host Ebony, and welcome to Season 2. This season, we're kicking it off with a deep dive series based on the notorious paranormal investigators, the Warrens, and their infamous investigations, now known as the famous film franchise, the Conjuring universe. But is what we see on the screen the truth, or mere fiction for ratings? It's this question and others I hope to answer within this series. So grab your popcorn, a plushie, and a drink as we deep dive the Conjuring classics. This is episode 1, an introduction. Edward Warren Miney, born September 7, 1926, and Lorraine Rita Warren, born January 31, 1927, were American paranormal investigators and authors associated with the prominent cases of alleged hauntings. Ed and Lorraine Warren were members of the Roman Catholic Church, and they married in 1945, and they believed that demonic forces were likely to possess those who lacked faith. Edward was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist, author and lecturer, where Lorraine professed to be a clairvoyant and a light trance medium who worked closely with her husband. On January 11, 1946, Lorraine gave birth to their daughter named Judy Warren. In 1952, the Warrens founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, the oldest ghost haunting group in New England. They authored many books about the paranormal and about their private investigations into various reports of paranormal activity. They claim to have investigated well over 10,000 cases during their career, and the Warrens were among the first investigators in the Amityville haunting. Stories of ghost hauntings popularized by the Warrens have been adapted as or have indirectly inspired dozens of films, television series, and documentaries, including several films in the Amityville horror series and the films in the Conjuring universe. In addition to the investigations, Lorraine ran the Warrens Occult Museum in the back of her house in Monroe, Connecticut, with the help of her son-in-law Tony Spera. The museum displays many claimed haunted objects and artifacts from around the world. Many of the artifacts from their famous investigations are featured, but the museum is currently owned by Judy Warren and Tony Spera. According to a 1997 interview with the Connecticut Post, Steve Novella and Perry DeAngelis investigated the Warrens for the New England Skeptical Society. They found the couple to be pleasant people, but their claims of demons and ghosts to be, at best, as tellers of meaningless ghost stories, and at worst, dangerous frauds. They took the $13 tour and looked at all the evidence the Warrens had for spirits and ghosts. They watched the videos and looked at the best evidence the Warrens had. Their conclusion was that it's all blarney. They found common errors with flash photography and nothing evil in the artifacts the Warrens had collected. They have a ton of fish stories about evidence they got away. They're not doing good scientific investigation. They have a predetermined conclusion which they adhere to, literally and religiously, according to Novella. Lorraine Warren said that the problem with Perry and Steve is that they don't base anything on God. Novella responded, it takes work to do solid critical thinking to actually employ your intellectual faculties and come to a conclusion that actually reflects reality. That's what scientists do every day, and that's what skeptics advocate. In an article for the Sydney Morning Herald that examined whether supernatural films are really based on the true events, the investigation was used as evidence to the contrary. As Novella is quoted, they, the Warrens, claim to have scientific evidence which does indeed prove the existence of ghosts, which sounds like a testable claim into which we can sink our investigative teeth. What we found was a very nice couple, some genuinely sincere people, but absolutely no compelling evidence. While it was made clear that neither DeAngelis nor Novella thought the Warrens would intentionally cause harm to anyone, they did caution that claims like the Warrens served to reinforce delusions and confuse the public about legitimate scientific methodology. In 2017, Judith Penny claimed that she had a 40-year sexual relationship with Ed, starting when she was 15. According to Penny, when she became pregnant, Lorraine persuaded her to have an abortion because the birth of a child would become a public scandal and could ruin the Warrens' business. Penny also claimed that had witnessed the couple and engaged in physical abuse. Lorraine had it written into her contract for the Conjuring film series that she and Ed could not be portrayed as having sex with each other, engaging in extramarital affairs, or engaging in crimes like a sex with a minor. Ed died on August 23, 2006, and Lorraine died on April 18, 2019. They were both buried at Stepney Cemetery in Monroe, Connecticut. The Warrens' case files served as the basis for the Conjuring universe series of horror films. The 2013 film The Conjuring, directed by James Wan, spotlights the Warren case and stars Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren. Its 2014 follow-up, Annabelle, a supernatural psychological horror film directed by John R. Leonetti, is both a prequel to and spin-off of The Conjuring, and was inspired by a story of the Annabelle doll. It stars Annabelle Wallis, Ward Horton, and Alfre Woodard. The Conjuring universe's next film was 2016's The Conjuring 2, a sequel to The Conjuring and directed by Wan, and again with Farmiga and Wilson reprising their roles as Lorraine and Ed respectively. It is based on the Enfield poltergeist case. 2017 saw the release of another prequel, Annabelle Creation, telling the origin story of the Annabelle doll. Farmiga and Wilson briefly appeared as Ed and Lorraine in the 2018 spin-off film The Nun, focusing on the character of Valek in its demon nun form, who was the villain in The Conjuring 2. The two reprised their roles again in Annabelle Comes Home, the sequel to Annabelle, and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. They are also scheduled to reprise their roles in The Conjuring, Last Rites. It's some of these films, as well as a few other notable films, and the stories that inspired them, that we will be deep diving throughout this series. Starting at the beginning of the universe, The Conjuring, or otherwise known as The Parent Family. Join us next week as the deep dive begins. My name is Ebony, this is the Film Spark podcast, and thank you for listening to the Conjuring Classics and Introduction. See you next week.